Yo, hey guys. So, whilst I'm critical of some coaches out there, I want to help you guys to kind of whittle down and sharpen up your critical eye in terms of what you're looking for, in terms of the right kinds of information that you need to be thinking about when you're watching coaches on YouTube and thinking about your own singing as well. Let's watch one of my favourite coaches called Shelby and see what she's got to say.
Do you ever experience your voice breaking in the middle of a big high note or maybe in the middle of an exercise that you're trying to do? Today in this vocal tip, we're going to be talking about how to prevent your voice from cracking. I'm Shelby Rollins with SingingSuccess.com, and we're going to get really nitty-gritty with some very technical oriented exercises to help you keep your voice held together, to keep your vocal cords engaged and connected instead of breaking apart.
First thing you'll notice, what does she refer to? Very first thing, the vocal cords themselves. This is one of the things you really got to look out for when you're trying to judge between, is this guy a snake oil salesman or does he really know what he's going on about? Coaches that refer directly to the cause of the problems. For most singers, what the vocal cords are doing is going to be the main thing that's going to help them improve when they address that directly. The main reason people struggle is generally because, at least at first, there's muscles getting in the way of a nice clean action in terms of the vocal cords thinning out or closing, whatever it is. Other muscles are getting in the way. So this is what you've got to look out for. Coaches that talk about and address the causes of most problems, which is what are the vocal cords doing. You notice with Tamplin, with Lunte, if that's his name, very rarely do you hear them address the vocal cords. They generally address everything but the vocal cords. Support, open throat, all these kinds of more nebulous, squishy kinds of concepts. Not right, what are the vocal cords doing? Yeah.
A lot of times when you're singing and you're going for that big high note, a lot of times we're pulling up too much tension and the vocal cords can't sustain that type of pressure and pull on them because you're using wrong musculature to get to those high notes, and so they just...
There you go. When she addresses wrong musculature, she's saying we're using incorrect muscles to try and get up there rather than letting the right muscles do the work. Again, this is the kind of information you want to latch onto if you're trying to get better as a singer.
Just break open, and usually it breaks into like a falsetto, and we'll recover and get back together, and the chords basically just kind of go from vibrating together to busting open and then coming right back together, and it's just this very split second thing that happens. But of course you're left then with this embarrassing moment of my voice cracked. And
yeah, and when it cracks, typically when those chords come apart, the right muscles aren't engaged and the wrong muscles want to grab more, especially when we feel like it's going wrong. Clamp, clamp, clamp. This is how these problems self-reinforce themselves.
And it happens to the best of us. And especially, if you even already know how to keep the chords together, but maybe you're working into an exercise that's more normal, showing off normal coordination, like a very neutral mum or a na or something like that. It's not an exaggerated sound, it's a really normal mix. Those are usually the moments that the voice cracks the most, and it's because we've lost a little bit of the exaggerated quality. So say, for instance, you're in a scale, you're going ma 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 ma, it kind of breaks, or a ma 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 ma. We've lost a little bit of the coordination to help it.
See, even she has problems doing bad demonstrations because her voice is so coordinated and the right muscles are so isolated that she kind of has to. It doesn't even really sound like a mistake that much when she's trying to kind of fake when it goes wrong, if that makes sense. You just hear the sense of looseness and freedom in her voice, man.
That stay together. It's partly because we've lost compression. There's a loss of a type of compression anyhow on the chords. So in that example, I was losing a little bit of the cry, a little bit of the gentle, Brett calls it a friendly squeeze right here on the vocal cords, if these are your chords. And the arytenoid muscles put a little gentle squeeze right here.
And we've been through that before. All that is huh, huh, huh. It's not It's not a grind on the chords, it's just hut, 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 a nice gentle closure.
If it loses it maybe prematurely, or we pull too much of it off in our sustain, then it can slip out of gear and flip a little bit. So instead of just hitting that scale 1,000 times over and over and over again till you're blue in the face, just abandon the scale for a second and go after what actually happened. Too many times I think we just want to sing the same scale over and over and try harder and harder, and we usually end up eroding the voice rather than fixing something.
Yeah, this is another great point she's making. She's saying, fix the problem. Don't just keep looping it round and hoping that it's somehow going to work at some point. If you address the problem, which is typically right, what are the vocal cords doing that are creating this issue, or just as much, what are they not doing? Am I letting go of compression? Am I managing to thin out? Am I grabbing on with the wrong muscles? These kinds of questions.
So what happened there is I lost a little compression, so I'm going to, instead of going back to the same scale, I'm going to use a little bit of vocal fry to help me hold the chords together on that pitch where I lost it, which for me right here.
So notice how she's diagnosing the issue and she's trying to come up with solutions to fix the problem that are very specific. They're not just right, support more. They are right, my vocal cords are coming together, I need to find a way to get them to, sorry, my vocal cords are coming apart, I need to find a way to close them gently without any pressure or any strain. How am I going to do that? Maybe with vocal fry. You can't make that sound without some closure, yeah? And typically it's the right kind of closure on that light vocal fry. It's very close actually to a mixed voice or a powerful sound if you know what you're doing.
There's a C, it's just right outside of my first bridge. I'm going to go and feel that cry, hold it together.
And what's the cry? The cry is the tilt. You go watch my my science videos from last week. The tilt muscles that we were talking about. The cry is just the sound you hear when you hear the tilt. I can't make any noise at the minute because there's people sleeping around me, but you can hear her do it.
I'm rolling up from the bottom, starting with a little bit of vocal fry. So I want you to try this with me. Go. Stay really whiny with it.
So notice how now she's combining closure with tilt. She's keeping that nice even compression through the range, and she's just tilting up and down. The right muscles are very isolated and it's very easy for her to do.
You don't want to try to do this by saying and not exaggerating it enough. When you're diagnosing something and breaking it down, you're kind of reverse engineering the process. So you do have to kind of swing the pendulum back to a more exaggerated form of whatever you did, which we did with that mum, 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 right? So I don't want to get more normal. I want to get more weird, actually, so that I then can go back to normal after that with the coordination from the exaggerated version of that. So I want to make sure we're going staying really whiny. You feel the resonance of that sound right up in here. You can also do this on an M and say,
when we emphasize that the pharyngeal part of the sound, it helps us to get the sound to go up behind the soft palate and tilt up into head, rather than having the sound that's not going up behind the soft palate and is trapped in the mouth. That's typically what holds us in chest and prevents us from releasing. So when she's talking about emphasizing this, it's helping you to tilt up there in the right way. And then once you're up there, what she's saying is, then we reset the exercise to a more neutral sound once we've got the right motion going with the exaggerated sound.
And if you're testing to see if you're using tension or you're still struggling to get this, press your thumb right here underneath your chin, like you've probably seen us do in videos before, and see if you're pulling tension and press up against it if you are.
And yeah, look what she's saying. Are the wrong muscles engaging? These swallowing muscles, she's addressing them.
When you start to hear the connection and you hear the cry, staying held together the entire time, then go back to the scale. Keep it loose. Don't worry about quality yet, or note accuracy really, or even sustain. Just kind of go for working your way back in. You're stair stepping your way.
I love this. So what she's saying is, don't worry too much about how well it's going in terms of a singing type of sound. Just be concerned about getting the function right. And then after that, worry about controlling it, worry about making it sound pretty. So she's put in the function before the form. Key, key, key. Any coaches out there that are giving out this kind of information, you need to be watching them.
Let it kind of feel sloppy even a little bit in terms of pitch. And slowly begin to elongate the note, and then eventually as you add a little more airflow and you feel that you can sustain this and get a little louder, and you'll come back to much more of a normal tone. So try this process instead of whenever you hear yourself mess something up or your voice breaks, instead of just singing it louder and harder over and over and over again, reverse engineer the process. Think about for a second, take a pause. Why did my voice crack? What was lost? If it was maybe a little bit of chord compression, then use this example, this vocal fry, to find the connection again on a smaller level, and then slowly lean into it a little bit more as you slowly go from a thinner amount of chord depth to a thicker amount of chord depth, getting louder, adding the airflow, adding the volume, just how I walked you through just now, and then eventually get back to the scale at hand. And
This girl's like a surgeon. She's a vocal surgeon. She knows what she's talking about. So the key thing I want to get across here is, and I'll talk about this in the future, I'm sure numerous times, is you've got to find coaches that are talking about the causes of problems, the root causes of problems, rather than the symptoms. They're talking very specifically about, they may talk about airflow, they may address what the chords are doing, they may address outer muscle strain, but notice it's all very specific. My vocal cords are coming apart. How am I going to get them to stay together? Or anything that really addresses things from a very functional perspective is going to lead you down the right path. If you can start filtering information out like this, you're going to start getting some really good results. Because you'll be watching coaches like Shelby, and you'll be able to start really understanding what's going on with your voice. Anyway, that's really all I wanted to say. I don't think my view on singing success is that these guys are no joke. They're the real professionals. Yes, they've got marketing, not necessarily to everyone's taste, but beneath that marketing they've got a real solid product. Unlike some other coaches that I've already spoken about before in previous videos. Anyway guys, I'll see you soon. Take care, keep singing. Bye.